Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the third episode of the Clayton Perspective, a podcast in which Clayton and I talk about works of literature. I interview him. We have a great time. It's pretty great. Right, Clayton?
It's pretty perfect, I'll tell you that much.
And how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing quite well, thank you.
Good.
Everything seems to be coming up Clayton at this point in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
I'm ready for some, serious hardcore literature analysis. What about you?
I am looking forward to it.
No better way to spend one's weekend, I would say. This week, we have a very, very special game that we are reviewing. Yeah, that's right. We're doing a video game today. You thought it couldn't get weirder after Birdemic, but it can, because we're doing a video game.
There are lots of things that rely on literature and writing.
This is true. This is true. And video games are no exception. So here we have the Stanley Parable, which is an excellent video game. Before we begin with this podcast, though, I wanted to give everybody a big thank you for 100 views on our first episode. That is a huge achievement, and it feels great that so many people were willing to watch us talk about some COVID-19 picture book thing. It was really fun to do, and the support was great. So if you haven't seen that video, you should definitely go watch it. Also watch episode 2, which was on Birdemic, which is this... I don't know how to describe that.
Awful movie.
Yeah.
Worst movie you've ever seen, but it's got its own charm.
It was charming. It was charming. And fun to watch. Fun to watch. Lots of good laughs. But anyways, I have the game open, and I have the game, so I'm going to be the one that's playing it. Clayton's going to be watching, and he's going to be directing me where to go.
Yes.
We are going to cut this up quite a bit in the actual podcast, but if you want, if you leave a comment and you want it, we have the full recording, so we can post that as kind of a resource to show you all of the things that we've seen in the game. So leave a comment if you want that. We're going to show you the highlights of this endeavor that Clayton and I are going on. You ready, Clayton?
Let's do it.
Okay.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow.
An hour.
No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Okay, Clayton, what do I do?
Go jump out the window.
This window?
Yes.
There's it. Oh, there we go. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Gotta... Yes. Wait. Do I dare?
Do it.
Huh. Oh. Wait. What?
At first, Stanley
But
assumed
the-
he'd broken the map until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. Now that you're here, what do you think?
This is an ending that you're not supposed to get. From my recollection of watching random YouTubers play this game, you're not supposed to get to this ending until like your 5th playthrough, your 7th playthrough. This is really interesting because this is a game where the entire thing is based off of choice, right? And there are lots of games that claim to, depend on what you choose. You make a lot of choices and they say that your choices matter, but in the end, they often do things to make it so that your choices don't really matter. They have you choose whether a person lives or dies, and then the person who you chose to live dies anyway in like the next 20 minutes of gameplay.
Right. They can kind of morph your choices to still follow their prescribed path. It's difficult to create a game that actually has branching paths and branching endings because you have to create each of those endings. You need something like the Stanley Parable where you can restart and the point of the game is to restart in order to really facilitate that, because otherwise it's just an open world game.
It's just interesting because this game is actually giving you choices that lead you to completely different endings.
I have to restart.
Oh, right, you can't. Right, you just have to go ahead and restart. Is never the end, is never the end, is never the... Alright, go ahead and just follow his directions for now.
Okay.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Go ahead and go to the door on the left. Let it ball up inside you. Take it out passive-aggressively on other co-workers. Yeah.
So it's self-referencing. The word to describe it would be like meta.
Yeah.
Recursive? Recursive is a good word for that, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, broom closet.
Should we?
Do it.
You too? Unbelievable. I'm at the mercy of an entire species of invalids. Perhaps there's a monkey nearby you can hand the controls to.
Go ahead and walk upstairs.
Do it. Do it. Walk upstairs.
And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number. 2845.
Oh man, we couldn't possibly know that, Clayton.
Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Okay.
What do we do?
I want you to start inputting the code starting from 00000001.
Whew. Only 9,996
the
left.
panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself.
Yes!
Stanley got the hell along with the story.
We did it!
It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job.
Okay.
Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him?
This is why I would like to bring in 1984, because of what he just said. That he's beginning to sort of get his emotions and figure out his space and feel like he's in control, whereas before he didn't even know that he was out of control.
The notion that you could somehow have your thoughts and emotions controlled is ludicrous. I think that it could be done if you're pumped full of drugs and you have some kind of implant in your brain. But unless you have something physically like interfering with your mental chemistry, that situation feels kind of phony to me. Do you think Stanley himself can hear the narrator?
That is a good question.
This question would not go unanswered for long.
Oh, good. Clayton and I have decided not to do the escape one yet, because we want to actually see the ending, the true ending to the game, before we do this path, but we will come back to this. And our decision has been finalized. That's cool. The doors closing is another symbol which we have to talk about. More 1984 vibes.
Yeah. Very Big Brother-esque.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe it couldn't be true, for he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Turn it on.
I want to see what the real ending is first.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
He had won. He had defeated the machine. unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. It was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go.
1984
No longer
vibes,
would
number
anyone
3.
tell him where to go,
Yeah.
what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
It's a pretty big door.
Yeah.
Oh.
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin,
Okay.
the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
I have chills. You know why? And it's not because
Why?
the game ending was sweet. It's because the moment we finished the game, I lost control of the mouse, Clayton. I was looking down and then it pointed me up afterwards. And
Right.
the whole point of that was at that moment he was free.
Oh,
But I was
no.
not free. The ending was set in stone.
No, Thomas. He was free from you.
He was free.
He was free from you, Thomas. He was no longer under the icy grip of game player number 1.
Clayton, am I the bad guy in this story?
Maybe. Maybe you are, Thomas.
Clayton,
Or maybe
if
it's me
I'm
because I'm telling you what to do.
making the decisions for Stanley, does that mean that I am the bad guy and that Stanley never had free will,
But now he does.
but now he does? What
But
the
does
heck?
he? Because now the game is controlling him. Of course, Stanley isn't real. We have to remember that.
From a narrative point of view, it ends and he's free. But in terms of the video game, now the game has ended and we get to begin it again, right?
Yes. Never the end is never the end is never the end is never the end is never...
Oh, what? These were not there before.
Just go ahead and go. This time
Okay.
you're going to go down the stairs.
Stanley walked upstairs to
Downstairs.
his boss's office. And then something occurred to Stanley.
No.
Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy.
No.
All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment
One,
for
two,
no
three,
reason at all. Why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? These rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found
recursive.
it particularly strange.
Okay.
I'm dreaming about a voice describing
You
me,
jump up on this?
thinking about how it's
No
describing
jumping.
my thoughts, he thought. He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream.
Proof that you're in
So
control.
he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin.
The sound design is
Let
amazing.
me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over.
Uh-oh.
Wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please,
Save me,
just
Cor.
someone
Go the other-
tell
go
me
the other
I'm
direction.
real.
Go
I must
backwards.
be real.
Oh,
I must
okay,
be.
the
Can
door
anyone
closed.
hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better.
1984
Bruh.
vibes, number 4, okay?
Okay.
And the reason is because 1984 is about that couldn't possibly happen to me. The things that could happen to a person could not possibly happen to me. This person, Mariella, is seeing a crazy person, Stanley. Stanley started as being just as sane as her, at least we think. But
maybe he's got schizophrenia.
maybe the whole thing was just a dream. I mean, we don't know. But the point is, Mariella is just like Stanley at the start. And we get that sense from the way the music starts and the way it's introduced. There's the parallel structure, right, Clayton? Parallel structure.
Right. Parallel structure
is so useful. Now, it says at the beginning of this whole thing, this is a story about a man named Stanley. And then, parallel structure, same music plays. This is a story about Mariella. It implies that they're the same at the start of this. He was her at some point.
There's so many different layers that are entwined. You know, is Stanley just an insane guy and the entire thing was in his head? Did he go insane? Was he completely normal and then something happened? It's just such a random thing to have happen. I think you raised a good point with that can't be me. That's not me. Oh God, do you remember a poem written by some dude in Nazi Germany? He's like, first they came for...
Can you find that? And I'll put it on the screen.
First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Mariella looked at Stanley and said, well, that's not me. I'm not crazy.
Right.
I'm a normal person. And so, you know, that made me think of this poem, First They Came.
It's the same parallel structure that I'm noticing, and also the cyclical nature of the poem that gives it its feeling. But what made you specifically, what makes this poem tied to the Stanley parable, relevant to the Stanley? Sure, yeah.
In this ending, it's given to us that Stanley was actually just insane and hallucinating, and Mariella just saw him, and both of their stories started the same way, so that tells us that there's something similar about them. But she looks at him and says, that's not me. And perhaps by denying that could be her, she may become that. Granted, that's rather extreme, because, you know, she's probably not going to go insane and die of a seizure in the sidewalk. But it made me think of it. It's the dissociation of individuality that people have from other people.
There is a quote from a philosopher a couple hundred years ago. It reads along the lines of, sometimes we stumble across our fate by trying to avoid it. So, you know, if we're trying to avoid self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing, Oedipus, that kind of deal.
Yeah, but like, you know, you go back in time to try and prevent Hitler from rising to power, and you actually cause him to rise to power.
Game plan right now. What are you thinking, Clayton?
A set of two open doors. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
I hate the design of this lounge.
It had really been worth. Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Okay.
Go ahead and take it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
That looks interesting.
Press the red button.
Should I
do it?
Press it? Okay. Oh. Oh no.
So now in order to get back, he needed to go, from here, it's, left. Oh, no. No, it's to the
Okay,
right.
so
by
here we're
mistake.
getting the first
No,
examples of how
not the right.
this narrator
Why
is
would
not
I have
actually
ever said it was to
omnipotent.
the right? What was I
Right.
thinking? It's clearly... Oh dear, would you hold on for a minute, please?
So we know now that the narrator is fallible and
Let's
he can
see,
make
you went
mistakes,
down
which is really
right,
interesting.
left,
Makes
Right.
this
left,
very compelling,
right.
actually.
Yep, okay, yes.
It does. It
I've
makes
got
you
it
wonder
now.
what his
This story
purpose
is
here
absolutely,
is.
definitely
I guess to
this
direct
way.
Stanley, but
You're not supposed to be here yet. This is all a spoiler. We'll just restart the game from the beginning.
that is rather interesting that he is shown to be relatively human. He's not
All
just
of
some
his
random
co-workers were
disembodied
gone.
entity. What happens if you go left to the door and just continue on? Does it just go
When
on as
Stanley...
normal?
Wait.
Oh.
Wait, what the heck?
No, no, I restarted. I swear, I definitely restarted the game over, completely fresh. Everything should be... Oh, did something change? Well,
This
I'm the
is
one who wrote the story.
Such an amazing
right
game.
here.
Okay, so yeah, okay, all right. This looks like the right
Oh no.
the back rooms, right? That's what I
Yes.
was thinking of.
Yeah, the
Do you
back
want to
rooms.
do you want to elaborate on the back rooms?
Okay, so the back rooms are a concept where, oftentimes in video games, you can kind of glitch through a wall and you end up in some kind of weird developer space that, you're not supposed to see in game.
Which happens quite a
Um,
lot in the Stanley Parable.
Yeah, although on purpose.
Right, yeah.
And so there's this idea that in real life you could somehow glitch through reality and you end up in endless corridors of
Mm,
beige walls and harsh fluorescent lighting and like dirty brown carpet,
mhm.
and it's just an eternal maze of nothing.
This picture here went viral and it caused
Mm.
this whole internet thing. Really interesting. It's definitely a reference to that.
It's just like some interdimensional conceptualization of eternal workings of the universe.
Right, right. And an office space is a special symbol, right? Like an office is a place of work, but it's also a very generic place and a place where you spend a lot of time and don't really think about your surroundings as a work of art. It's like an
It's just
in-between space. It's a place that doesn't have
yeah.
emotion. It's really yeah, what do
The
you think?
hallways of an office building don't serve a purpose except for getting from point A to point B.
Mm,
And they're not really adorned. There's nothing in them to grab your attention. They're just kind of dull and boring. It's this place that you're trapped in for eternity, and there is nothing.
mm,
It's worse than nothing, right?
right.
Because if you were if you were just floating in nothingness, then that would be crazy. But if you're stuck in just office corridors that are constantly urging you to move,
Mm,
and there's this feeling that there's somewhere to go, but if you never get there,
mm,
that's awful.
right. And it's a powerful symbol that's included in the Stanley Parable.
Do we need to restart the game again?
Yep.
Second restart? I mean,
Yeah, second.
Okay, it's worse. Why don't we go back the other direction and see if we missed anything?
I don't like going backwards here.
And retrace our steps.
non-Euclidean space.
Well, I'll be honest, I don't recognize this place at all. How about this? You win! Congratulations!
We win, Clayton!
Won!
Yes!
Yes!
I know you
We
put in
beat
a
the
lot of hard
game!
work. I don't feel right about this at all. We
Dang
both
it.
know you didn't put in any actual work for that win.
And this is a commentary on most video games and how
Mhm.
most of the time it's a linear story progression and they just walk you through and let you win at the end.
It is a tried and true method of entertainment. You still have to work for it. You still have to press the buttons at the right time and move in the right direction and do the correct things and whatnot. So there's still that feeling of satisfaction, and the reason that video game companies are able to sell games like that is because people play them and feel satisfied with the results. I mean, how would you define work in a video game too? You put in effort either way, it's just different kinds of effort.
I don't care what might happen this time, I have to restart.
The end is never the end is never the end is never.
All right, I've got a solution. This time, to make sure we don't get lost,
It's
I've employed
trademarked.
the help of the Stanley Parable Adventure Line. Just follow the line. How simple is that?
That's not the... Oh, no. Hey, guys. We had so many great clips of us in this episode of the Clayton Perspective podcast that I decided to split it into 2 parts. So I'm going to be releasing this part, and then a week later, we're going to do the second part. If it's already out, it'll be linked down in the description of this video. So if you're interested in where the adventure line takes us, then you're gonna have to see that in the next episode that comes out next week. I also do some Minecraft and some computer programming videos, particularly in Java. And something that's gonna be coming out soon is I'm making this event in Minecraft for a bunch of my friends, and they're gonna be competing and using some of the plugins that I wrote. So if you're interested in that video, let me know in the comments. And if you want to know the exact time that the second part of this video gets released, you can always ring the notification bell. But I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Clayton Perspective podcast. And as always,
This has been the Clayton Perspective.
Thank you.